happen. So my ex and his brother decided to show up for the show cause hearing. Now, his brother hasn't been to many of these hearings, but usually there's a family member strung along for these. Actually, the only time that he didn't have a family member was the one time that he went to jail that he needed one. So that's kind of comical. Anyway, so the brother is there because he's the one that actually paid the $5,000 bail to get my ex out of jail last month. So the brother is there to collect.
Welcome back, everyone. This first scenario is all about a child support showdown. The ex was behind on payments, and his brother stepped in to bail him out, literally. Now, they're both in front of the judge to figure out if that bond money was supposed to go back to the brother or be used for child support. Let's see how that went.
Let's look at this first user comment. Child support is way out of hand. I raised my 2 daughters myself. Single dad. My ex paid 0 child support. I worked in a grocery store. I didn't make a lot. I let her see her daughters as well.
This commenter is frustrated at how inconsistent child support enforcement can be. Sometimes dads end up raising kids alone with no support. Other times the system comes down hard for payment. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. But if a court sets a legal obligation, ignoring it is basically asking for trouble, just like we see with this ex-husband.
The judge asks the brother, she goes, it looks like this was labeled as a surety, meaning that he is allowed to take his $5,000 bond back. She says, I didn't intend for this to happen. That was a mistake on my end. So I will ask you, she points to the brother, do you want to take this money and pay child services today as it was intended? And he goes, no, I borrowed the money. I want it back. I got to pay somebody back for it. Now, we all know that's not the case. She goes, okay. She goes, well, if that's the case, then she looks at my ex and she says, you're going to jail again today. And he starts like freaking out. Ah. She goes, you don't understand. The reason you were put in jail is because you did not pay child support. So I put a $5,000 bond so that you could be released. But that money was intended to go to child support. I made a mistake by not doing the order correctly. Therefore, I have to ask your brother if he wants the money back. And if he does, then what was the point of putting bail on it in the first place? Therefore, you can go back to jail today for the amount of $5,000, and I will make sure that anybody who pays it is under the understanding they will not be getting that money back. It will be going to your back child support. So then This
is the classic pay now or stay in jail move courts sometimes resort to when a parent is deeply in arrears. The judge is basically telling him, if your brother insists on a refund, you're going right back behind bars. Then the ex hits panic mode.
Second comment says, my ex owes me over $100K in back child support. How did you even get the state to do anything? I would love to attend court every month, even though I'd have to travel.
This user is highlighting a big frustration. Enforcement can vary widely depending on the state, the court, and how persistent you are at filing motions. In some places, you might have to push the system repeatedly to get a hearing. In this story, monthly court dates are basically forcing the ex to pay up. No skipping out this time.
Turns back to my ex and she goes, do you have a financial affidavit? Because he has refused for the past year to file one, even though he has a right. It is the law to mandatorily disclose his finances to me and to the court so that we can determine child support. He wanted to decrease it, but he just wanted to decrease it without providing any supporting documentation. She also ordered at the last hearing that he was supposed to provide 12 months of personal bank statements and profit and loss statements for his business, which he has not provided. So he's sitting there and he's got 2 packets of paperwork that are his financial statements, allegedly. Okay. He's sitting there and he goes, I have the stuff for you. And she goes, okay, I can take it. Do you have a copy for her? Meaning me. He goes, no, I don't have a copy and I'm not going to give her a copy. And the judge is taken aback and she goes, you know, it's her right to have this information so that she can evaluate it. Like, this isn't, the judge just gets it as evidence, but it's really up to us to go through it and determine validity, or if I want to get a forensic accountant to go through and validate that what he's giving her is the truth. That is my right. He's like, I'm not going to hand it to her. And she goes, you have to. And he goes, she has a TikTok. She has a TikTok and she's talking about this. She's talking about this hearing. So I'm not going to provide it because I don't want all my financial stuff on TikTok. And so
This is the moment where the ex tries to keep his finances secret by blaming social media. But in child support cases, both parties have the right to see financial documents so the support can be calculated accurately. If you withhold information, you risk losing the judge's sympathy and maybe even your freedom.
Another comment. My ex-husband is supposed to pay $1,200 a month and hasn't paid any of it in almost 3 years. It's ridiculous. And to top it off, he just had another baby. The audacity.
Here's the rub. Some folks dodge child support while starting new relationships or even welcoming more children, which only complicates the situation further. Courts don't take kindly to people who ignore their obligations, especially if it looks like there's money for other things, but not for child support. That's exactly why the judge is pressing so hard in the snippet we just heard.
Back, he talks to his brother. 2 minutes later, he comes back up and he's like, he will release it. Then we continue to talk, and I say, between the last hearing where he went to jail and this hearing, he's only paid $900. He's supposed to pay $2,900. He's only paid a third of his payment. And honestly, daycare is not going to accept a third of payment. The dental work that I have to get for my daughter, they're not going to just accept a third and do it. I can't go to the grocery store and be like, hey, $150 bill? How about 50 and we call it good and I walk away with the groceries? No, that's not how the world works. So I was pretty irritated that he didn't pay it in full. She turns back to my ex and she goes, do you have a financial affidavit? Because he has refused for the past year to file one, even though he has a right. It is the law to mandatorily disclose his finances to me and to the court so that we can determine child support. He wanted to decrease it.
She's calling out the reality of child expenses. Groceries, daycare, medical treatments. None of these come at a discount just because somebody's short on funds this month. If you're a parent, child support is not optional. It's there to make sure the child's everyday needs are met.
Check out this comment. Your system is so screwed up down there. Here in Canada, they go to the employer and take it directly from his check. He never even sees it. But it has to go through the courts for this to happen.
In some places, automatic wage garnishment is the go-to method. This system can be much simpler, no chasing people around each month. But the U.S. approach varies state by state, judge by judge. That said, if you keep showing up to court like the person in our snippet, eventually you can request wage garnishment. That's often the best route for consistent payments.
If the parent of your child or your ex has now changed jobs or career paths and is earning substantially lower income, and they did this willfully, they were not fired, they were not terminated, laid off, they just did this on their own, and now their income is lower than what it was, and they're coming back and they're trying to modify their support obligation, what should you do? Courts in Illinois have been firm about this, especially if there are children involved. If the parent of your child or your ex has now changed jobs or career paths and is earning substantially lower income, and they did this willfully, they were not fired, they were not terminated, laid off.
Now we jump to a related but distinct scenario. Here, someone is willfully taking a lower paying job just to reduce child support. The courts tend to frown on that because it looks like you're dodging your responsibilities instead of facing them head on.
I'm in Missouri. My deadbeat is in Illinois. Nothing is being done. He's $18 behind, 2 years not filing taxes. Should I file in Illinois?
This user is basically stuck in a cross-state situation, which complicates enforcement. Typically, you'd file in the state that issued the original child support order or contact local child support enforcement. It's definitely not easy, but as we've seen, once you get a hearing or a show cause, the wheels start turning.
Courts sometimes will either leave the child support amount the same as it was and they'll deny the modification, or they'll simply impute the income to the income that you have been making or they have been making over the last several months or years, which has been the status quo. Courts sometimes will either leave the child support amount the same as it was and they'll deny the modification, or they'll simply impute the income to the income that you have been making or they have been making over the last several months or years, which has been the status quo. Courts sometimes will either leave the child support amount the same as it was and they'll deny the modification, or they'll simply impute the income to the income that you have been making or they have been making over the last several months or years, which has.
This is the concept of imputed income. You can't just quit your high-paying job, take a part-time gig, and expect your children to suffer because your paycheck's smaller. Many judges will say, "We're calculating support as though you never left that higher-paying job."
Next comment. Will a court make them prove they were let go? My ex left a job after 15 years, now asking for modification.
If the court suspects a deliberate pay cut, they'll often request documentation, such as termination letters, severance packages, or even testimony from the employer. It's not unusual for the judge to want solid proof that job loss wasn't voluntary.
So when someone comes up to me and they say, why am I paying all this support? I might as well not work. Or you know what? How about if I get a job and I earn so much less? My advice is always do not do that. You will not look good in front of the court. And most likely it'll be ordered that you pay the same amount in support. So that'll only put you in a financial struggle. So when someone comes up to me and they say, why am I paying all this support? I might as well not work. Or you know what? How about if I get a job and I earn so much less? My advice is always do not do that. You will not look good in front of the court. And most likely it'll be ordered that you pay the same amount in support. So that'll only put you in a financial struggle. So when someone comes up to me and
Doing something dramatic, like quitting your job entirely, tends to backfire. The court might view it as a ploy to pay less. Instead of saving you money, it could land you a bigger child support bill, plus possible legal headaches.
Check out this user's comment. I started the process through the state. NCP has a lawyer. I do not. I cannot afford one. I have our daughter 70% of time. NCP requested a month delay on...
When one party has a lawyer and the other doesn't, the process can feel unfair, but you don't necessarily lose. Many states offer self-help resources or legal aid for child support. If you're the custodial parent 70% of the time, the court should recognize that, lawyer or not. Patience and persistence are key.
Another perspective. What about the other parent getting better jobs since being on child support, but still paying the same amount as when first put on years ago?
It works both ways. If you're earning more, the other parent can file for a modification to increase child support. The system is designed to keep the child's needs front and center. So if your finances change significantly, whether up or down, it's wise to revisit the support order. But you have to go through the proper legal channels. At the end of the day, child support is about consistency, transparency, and genuinely ensuring the kids are okay. If you're behind on payments, ignoring court orders is a fast track to jail time. If you're switching jobs to avoid paying more, the judge may impute your old income anyway. And if you're dealing with cross-state issues, keep pressing for hearings. Courts can move slowly, but they do move. So whether you're the custodial parent or the one paying, honesty and cooperation typically lead to the best outcome for everyone involved. Thanks for tuning in. If this breakdown helped you learn something, or if you simply like hearing about real-life courtroom drama, be sure to subscribe, drop a comment below, and share this video with someone else who needs the facts. Until next time, take care and stay informed.